guys, so today I'm going to be doing my top 12 books of 2012. I've already done a book tag called the favourites of 2012 book tag, but as that was a really great tag, but I didn't get to show a big enough selection of my favourite books, so I thought I would do a top 12 just so I could get more of my favourite books in there basically. So yeah, I have 12 books plus some honourable mentions that I felt also should be in the video. So my first favourite was Heart on a Chain by Cindy C. Bennett. I read this in February of 2012 and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's a beautiful contemporary book. Kate is 17 years old and she's sort of neglected and abused by her mother, but then Henry comes back to town and she sort of develops a friendship and a romance with him, and it's so beautiful. I've reread it about 5 times this year. It's become one of my all-time favourite books, but a lot of people haven't really heard of it or read it, which is a real shame because it's absolutely beautiful. So you need to check this book out. Also, if you have an ebook, it's really reasonable. It's I think in the UK it's about like £1 on the Kindle, so for that you should really check it out. My second favourite book was obviously The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I read this in March. I was a little bit late in reading it because as much as I followed the Vlogbrothers and loved them, I was worried that because it was such a popular book and everyone was saying how amazing it was and how beautiful and how deep it was, I was worried that I wouldn't get it on the same level that everyone else was getting it. I was worried I'd pick it up and not really get it, but I caved and I read it and it was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I was really pleased that I actually did get it and read it. It was so beautiful. It has some of my all-time favourite quotes in here. Wonderful. Also, The Diviners by Libba Bray. I read this in October 2012, and despite it being an absolutely beastie book, it's an absolutely amazing book. Libba Bray has become one of my favourite authors through this book. I love that it's a supernatural sort of creepy book set in the 1920s. I loved all the historical lexis like positutely and the cat's pyjamas. It was absolutely brilliant and I can't wait for the next book. This is going to be a quartet, I think, and it's going to be 1 book a year, so I cannot wait for the next one. As much as some stuff was wrapped up, there's still so much left to explore in this world, and I just can't wait. It was absolutely brilliant. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my god, this is such an amazing YA fantasy book. I loved this book. I actually read an ARC and I won this copy because it's signed. So this was brilliant. Selena Sardothian is sort of a hard-ass assassin, but she makes the mistake of getting caught and then she has to endure the salt mines, which most people don't last a week, but she's managed to last a year. So it gives you an idea how tough she is. And then she's approached by a prince to basically be his competitor in this competition to basically work for the king. And there's some mystery, some magic. It's absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for the next book. This was amazing. Loved it. Pushing the Limits, Katie McGarry. Oh my god, I'm still obsessed with this book. It is a contemporary. It has obviously romance in it, but there's so much more to it than just it being a YA romance. Noah and Echo both have some serious issues going on in their lives, and they, for all intents and purposes, they shouldn't be the sort of people that get together. She was in the popular crowd, he's not, but circumstances bring them together, and love it. I absolutely love it, and I loved that we got both Noah's point of view and Echo's point of view. Both characters had depth. both characters' stories were interesting, and the way they came together, their chemistry was amazing. Everything about this book was amazing. Loved it, and actually I've not heard anyone say a bad thing about it. It's that good. Also, I included both of these books because they were both favourites. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor and Days of Blood and Starlight. I read these really close together, and I couldn't believe it took me so long to pick up Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I flew through it. I absolutely loved it. Karou was an amazing protagonist. I loved that it was set in, I think it's Prague, but then she also goes all around the world. I can't say the name of the things properly, but the creatures in it are amazing. And the way it continues into this one, it's amazing. And this wasn't a small book, it's really quite beastly, but I could have just flown through it. I had to pace myself because otherwise I would have just devoured it, and I wanted to absorb everything about it. It's beautiful. Laini Taylor's writing style is so lyrical, it's so beautiful, and rich imagery throughout the books. So yeah, these both had to be on my list because I loved them both equally. They were both amazing, and I, again, can't wait to read the next book in that series. Next book is actually the first book I read in 2012, and that's A Touch of Power by Maria V. Snyder. This was my first Maria V. Snyder book, but it wasn't my last of 2012. This book was amazing. I loved it. If you love fantasy, you have to read this. Avery is the last healer. There's been this huge plague, and it's killed millions and millions of people, and the healers were blamed for spreading it and not healing this plague, and so they've been basically hunted, and as far as we know, Avery is the last healer, and so she has to keep her powers hidden, but of course we can see what's going on. Oh, loved this. I can't wait to read the second book. So, yep. Crave by Melissa Darnell. This is basically another YA paranormal romance, but something about it, I just loved it. It's about sort of vampires and witches and forbidden love, and I just loved it. Again, can't wait for the next one of this either. The next one was kind of a surprise. It was my first experience really of middle grade fiction. Haven't really read a lot of it, but that was The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell by Colfer. I went into this with, mild expectations because I hadn't read middle grade, and because obviously he's a celebrity author, and sometimes we all know, I don't like to judge, but sometimes they can just be a little bit dodgy. But no, I absolutely loved this. I mean, it delivers everything that you get to see on the cover. It was a beautiful sort of escapade through a fairy tale world, and I can't wait for the next one of this either. It was so good. Perfect middle grade read, and it definitely made me want to try more middle grade. So, yep. And then the last of my 12 is Darker After Midnight by Lara Adrian. This is, I think, book 10 in the Midnight Breed series, which is an adult paranormal sort of urban fantasy-ish. Yeah, and I love this series. This one isn't my favourite of the series, but it was still so amazing, and I can't wait for the next book that comes out in February 2013. So it's going to be amazing. So some honourable mentions. These books I really, really, really loved, but I just couldn't fit them onto the top 12. That was Persuade Me by Juliet Archer. This is an adult sort of chick lit retelling of Persuasion by Jane Austen, and Persuasion is one of my favourite Austen books. It's a toss up between that and Pride and Prejudice, so I was really excited to find a retelling, because most retellings are of Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice. There aren't many for Persuasion, but oh my god, loved it. It was brilliant. If you're a Jane Austen fan, I highly recommend you try this. Poison Study, Maria V. Snyder. Again, after I read Touch of Power, I wanted to get all of her books, and my best friend bought me the Poison Study trilogy for my birthday, and I finally read them in August. Loved them. Yelena is just as brilliant a protagonist as Avery was from A Touch of Power. Loved them. I loved the whole sort of poison and magic elements. It was just amazing. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I had this on my shelf for a year. I read this in December 2012 and I'm so glad I finally picked it up. It's so imaginative. The whole setting of it is so beautiful. I couldn't believe how much I loved it. The book is just as beautiful as its cover. So yeah, this one had to go on the honourable mentions because it was so good. I loved it. And the last honourable mention is The Unbecoming of Mara by Michelle Hodkin. This book came out in 2011 and I actually bought it in 2011 when it came out, but I only got round to it in March of 2012. This book was a really hyped up release, and then when it came out, reviewers were on two sides of the fence. Some people loved it, raved about it, and others were highly disappointed and really didn't like it. So I waited for the hype to die down, and I absolutely loved it. Such a sort of eerie sort of book, and Noah in it is amazing. I just love that we don't really know if what Mara is seeing is true or if she is crazy. I loved that in this book actually her family set up. A lot of the YA sort of paranormal supernatural books have it that her parents have died or something. You know what I mean. They she doesn't have, you know, her parents, but she has a very strong family set up. You know, she has a parent, she has her two brothers, and it was just a refreshing read, and I loved it. And I do have the second book on my shelf ready to go at some point. So yeah, those were my favourites of 2012. I read so many great books. I think I read 112 books in 2012, which I think is about 7 more than I read in 2011. So yeah, I hope you guys had a really great reading year. I want to thank all my new subscribers and my old subscribers for making 2012 a really great year for me on YouTube. I've really enjoyed it, and here's to a really great bookish 2013. Happy reading, guys.